What up, tippers? It's Marvin. So, we wanted to see if we can have a little bit more fun with the show. So, we're sending an open call to all the listeners of the show to see if you want to join us for an episode to be a guest. If you're interested, hit us up in the Discord and we can see if we can work something out. No promises to anybody, so if you don't get on, don't be like, man, Marvin, you said you were going to put me on an episode. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we're going to see if you'd be interested and if we're interested in you. Wouldn't be long term, just be an episode or two to have a little fun. So if you are interested, again, hit us up on the Discord, maybe even the Twitter, or email us, and we can see if we can work something out. Cool? All right. Let's go ahead and start the show. Welcome, everybody, to That One Podcast, the show that gets more round of applause from its fans than Donald Trump at the State of the Union address. Today, I am here with the one, the only, the IT guru himself, Mark. How we doing this evening?
I am doing just fine. Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, as the kid or whatever the kids call it these days.
Yeah, I think they still call it that, so I'm fine with that. So, as always, we're going to go over the particulars before we get started here. You guys know what it is. Instagram and Twitter at ThatOnePod. Email us at podthat@gmail.com. If you want to go find anything from the show page, the Patreon, anything like that, go to shows.pippa.io/that, the number one podcast, and you'll get all the deets there. And Mark, let them know where to find your content.
You can find me on Twitch. You can find me on Twitter as T1PEp46, TYCOONATIC. I'm streaming at least once or twice a week now, and been keeping up on a pretty good schedule. So have a look over at Twitter. And if you can't do that, you can always visit me after the fact at YouTube. Just look for the same name, T1PEp46.
And watch him in HD glory. It's 720p, right?
It's 720p, yeah.
Yep, so HD glory, just like I said.
Not taking any chances with slowdown on that one, but yeah. If you guys like a little bit of chill stream and a little bit of somebody probably playing video games who has no business doing it because he's an old man, well, there you go.
It all works out in the end, right?
Well, yeah. Hey, I have fun. I hope you do too.
Oh, I've been enjoying it, so everybody, you watch it too. It's good stuff. All right, so first thing first. This week, we are going to start off with the most pressing news of the day, and that's we're getting new emojis, people.
Emojis! Happy face, thumbs up and stuff, and animals and...
You're living in a very simplistic world, my friend. We're getting way more emojis than that.
What?
A total of 230 emojis are coming to...
Oh my god, how many faces are possible? Tell me.
You would think not that many, but actually quite a bit. And keep in mind, people, don't go look into your phone right now. But, ooh, can I do it now? The way this typically works, they've been approved by the Unicode Consortium, and it generally takes months for it to be implemented across the board on Android, iOS, and whatever other platforms you're thinking of. So if you're looking to text your friend whatever emoji that we mentioned on this, it probably won't be ready until the second half of this year at the very least. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, they're saying like September, October. So if you want to have the absolute ugliest artwork for a sloth or an otter or different hands or pictures of musical instruments or waffles, then, man, September and October is going to be your favorite month.
Well, so here's the thing. There are some things that people absolutely are not going to use. The oyster with a pearl in it, it looks very confusing, and it probably would be used for something completely different than that. But then there's even the drop of blood, which if you look at that drop of blood, Mark, I defy you to tell me it doesn't look like an individual testicle.
I hadn't even thought about it that way.
And
I do like that
they've be able to unsee it.
I do like that they've gone out of their way to no, not even out of the way. They have properly over time created all kinds of different emojis of faces and people that like have all different kind of like skin colors, hair colors, like the whole 9 yards. Just everything to kind of be inclusive, to try and make an emoji or a character for everybody. But then they try so hard, and then they say, I'm going to be inclusive to disabled people, so they've released a white person in a wheelchair.
Well, there's there's supposed to be multiple people of any color.
Oh, maybe I just good. Maybe I just didn't see it. But
I go to the actual the blog page for it. Every emoji of a person will have a person of color combination that will meet your heart's desire. So that's actually where what I was going to talk about is, 230. So I was like, oh man, we're getting a lot. Yeah, we're not really getting that many. We're getting maybe like 30, and there's just going to be a shit ton of combinations for the ones we're getting. So for instance, they have two people holding hands, but they have two people holding hands of every color combination you want that are male, two people holding hands of every color combination that you want that are women, two people holding hands that are male and female that are of every color combination that you want. So like that alone is like fucking 40 different emojis for just two people holding hands.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, it's still good. I am absolutely going to pretend I care about these, look and see what they all are, and then go back to just using smiley faces and sad faces for the rest of my life.
Yeah, pretty much, right? I will say this. So here's the thing. They've included some icons, or I should say some emojis that I'm not sure are going to get a lot of use. But I understand why they added it, like of the blind people, because I'm like, wait, if you're blind, are you using
Oh boy.
And that's not to be disrespectful. It's just like I honestly don't know like what the emoji game is like for the blind. So maybe literally there's like that text to speech program that goes guy with walking stick emoji, and I'm like, oh, cool. Okay, then fuck it. They need it.
Actually, you know what? If there is a program like that does text to speech, but also just kind of like says what the emoji is, that is a great way to cheat at those games that are like, what is this line of emojis saying?
Yeah.
Man, I should get one of those.
Yeah. But I will say this. None of these emojis matter. There's only one that is going to matter. And it's already going around the internet that there is an emoji for pinching. Do you see that little emoji, Mark?
I do. It looks like somebody saying, I have a penis this big.
And that's exactly what the internet thought as well. So
yes.
There is going to be a new emoji combination, I'm sure. There's going to be pinching emoji, eggplant emoji. And frankly speaking, I think it's hilarious because guess what? You can use every person of color combination that you want. So it could be a black guy with a tiny eggplant. It could be an Asian guy with a tiny eggplant. It could be a white guy with a tiny eggplant. And guess what? That is equality amongst humans.
Hey, let us all be inclusive with our tiny eggplants.
Exactly. Some are tinier than others. Keep that in mind. But I think I mean.
It's not the size of the eggplant that matters. It's how you put it into the eggplant parmesan.
I think technically the counterpart would be the avocado, although eggplant and avocado never go together. But it is what it is. But I mean, they're emojis. I just wanted to talk about them because it's gonna happen. And there is like one yawning face, and I think the most vicious combination would be like yawning face, pinching, eggplant. That might be like the that tiny penis was so boring, so.
The yawning face is actually pretty funny because it's not really entirely clear what that face is saying. Like if you put the waffle emoji, and then you put the yawning emoji, it looks like it looks like you're saying,
It
I
could
took a
be.
waffle and I stuffed it in my mouth.
I mean, you know what? You're not wrong. Because that's actually what I was. As soon as you started saying, I was like, oh shit, yeah, it looks like you could be just carving down on something too. So, I
Or he
mean,
could be like super frightened. He's like screaming with his mouth over his face. Trying not to, like it's like somebody. It's like an emoji that is like hiding in a corner while there's like some sort of horrible emoji murderer, a murderer out there, and he's just like he wants to scream so hard, but he just knows that if he does, that murderer is gonna just get him. So he's just holding his hand over his mouth. I have an overactive imagination. Sorry about that.
I think he just looks like he's yawning, but I mean, to each his own. So yeah, be looking forward to these emojis. I'm sure you'll all be waiting with bated breath. All right, so that is cell phone, and I say cell phone technology, but let's go to some actual cell phone technology. And Google is introducing a new security methodology called adiantum. Is that how do adiantum?
I have not found it in the dictionary, nor have I found a pronunciation guide, but I don't know. It's Adiantum. Adiantum, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And long story short, this has to do with device data encryption. So one of the things that's happening is with newer devices, a lot of manufacturers are putting on a dedicated chip that will deal with data encryption. And this is good. I mean, it's making sure that all your data on your phone is encrypted and nobody can just has it for free. The problem is that with the rising costs of cell phones, which we will be talking about just after this story, there are a lot of people who are flocking to cheaper, lower cost options, which, I mean, that makes sense. But with that means the manufacturer probably isn't going to foot the cost to add a chip that's going to bump up that price. So, I mean, if you have a cheaper phone, yeah, it's okay to not have features like, 17 different cameras and no bezels or whatever the case may be, right? Like, I mean, most people don't need that shit. But at the same time, too, device encryption is universal. Everyone needs it, no matter how important your data is. I heard somebody... I read someone's comment about data encryption. I thought it was incredibly fascinating, and they were saying something along the lines of saying that I don't have anything to hide when it comes to so I don't need data encryption is like saying I gotta find this. Because this is gonna bother me. I don't want to fuck this up. In the meantime, Mark, you go ahead. What are your thoughts on this? I want to see if I can find this quote.
No, I mean this is great. Anytime that they come up with new with new and better security for encryption, it's great. This doesn't seem to actually be specifically better encryption than other options out there. It's at least as good as some of the best that's available for consumers. But it does, from what I can tell, it does seem to be able to do the good encryption and also like take less physical space on a device, right, when it's doing the encryption. And I think that's the biggest thing about it. One note that I will say is that this encryption, at least right now, is only going to be available in Android 9 and higher. So if you're still rocking 8, like I am, because LG doesn't update their damn phones in the United States for some reason, or at least not on T-Mobile, then you won't be able to use it, so you don't have to worry about it. There's still plenty of good security options out there, but hey, you know what? As tech changes tech changes fast and tech improves fast, and so this is just kind of the next step. The nice thing is that this is a word, albeit kind of hard to pronounce, and not something like cha-cha 20 or yeah, RFC 1 2 3 4. It's just not, it doesn't have one of these like really obscure names that you have to keep track of all these different acronyms. You just have to remember a word that is kind of. You just have to remember a word that vaguely sounds like a fake metal in a comic book.
Yeah. I mean, and so the funny thing I think about this is, I kind of don't care about the name. I want it to be such an not ambiguous. I want it to be such a commonplace usage of technology that is just what people do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And to be clear, the largest. I mean, I'm not saying anything about the name particularly. I just found it kind of cool that it was just like, hey, here's this, here's a hip new word. Also, to be clear on what I was talking about with the device, despite it currently being available for Android 9, they're trying to position it as a device that does not slow down your phone or your device, your system, whatever. It doesn't have any slowdown on any sort of device, has the same level of encryption, and basically doesn't use as many resources effectively. So it's entirely possible that whether or not you're running Android, whether or not it requires Android 9 in the end, this should actually run with no performance decrease on any like level of phone, like on low-end phones, high-end phones, whatever.
Yeah. And that's actually the important bit, because for there to be any high market adoption for something like this, it needs to feel snappy, right? And that's where having the dedicated chip on board means that you get that snappiness, because now you don't have a processor doing two jobs. So I hope that it really does have a reach in the market, because I mean, anything to get more encryption can't be bad, right? It can only be good. So, I mean, let's just cross our fingers that it
as long as the manufacturers don't say that in order to fit this chip into the phone, they have to take out the headphone jack, I'll be happy.
Don't start. And I did find that quote. I was looking at a video where they were talking about iMessage and how it compares to Android's offerings with text messaging, which are all shit, admittedly. But the one quote I saw in this article was from a person, I'm going to read, his name is Brad Kuhn, and he says, not caring about your privacy because you have nothing to hide is like not caring about free speech because you have nothing to say. And it's so eloquently said, I couldn't agree more. And that's really what it's all about is, everybody says like, oh, I have nothing to hide. And yet you lock your door at night, right? Why? Because you don't know what's going to happen. And that's what you should do with your data. You don't know what's going to happen until your data is gone or someone has it and does something with it,
Right.
So, yeah, you might not have any dick pics, but at the same time, too, I guarantee you've done something important on your phone that you actually care about, because you probably wouldn't have spent multiple hundreds of dollars on that device otherwise. So, just...
Look, having stuff that you need to protect doesn't... it doesn't mean. See, people think about things in the way that like, there's nothing. I have nothing to hide, right? I have nothing that is embarrassing. We're not talking. That's one thing that you might want to, secure, but there's a lot of other stuff that you don't necessarily want other people to look at. You can have personal, personal financial data. You can have maybe you've got that Pokemon fanfic that you created when you were 14, and it's super embarrassing. But
I told you that
don't want
to.
But you don't want to get rid of it because it's the one thing that you showed to your grandma before she passed and she thought it was the greatest thing. Stuff like that. Everybody's got something. I've got old emails from my mom. My mom, at this point in time, she passed away a few years ago. I've got emails from my mom that just say, "Hey, wanted to check in." And I'm not going to get rid of them. But I don't necessarily want somebody reading my old emails from my mom.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
it's I just want to make a point. It's like when you think about stuff to encrypt or stuff to secure, everybody's got some things that they want to keep safe.
Yeah.
They want to keep personal, they want to keep private.
And the big thing is, if you can do it and it doesn't come at a higher price, or literally from a monetary standpoint, and it doesn't come at a cost of performance, just fucking do it. And kudos for Google for finding a way of doing this. So, and not doing what Apple does, which is, yeah, they do it, but then they sort of are dicks about it. They tend to. I find it funny that Apple, just like what we talked about last week, Apple tries to act like they're holier than thou, and then when they actually, and then kind of find out, oh wait, your shit isn't as safe as you try to present it. So, I'll take what we can get because we don't get a lot of wins very often. So
yeah.
The more protection options we have, the better. So nothing bad about that.
No, I couldn't agree more.
Now, switching modes from cheap phones, we're going to go to incredibly expensive phones. And one of the more expensive phones you can find out there is the Galaxy S line. And habitually, it tends to be right up there with the big boys, with most expensive offering you can find. But, they, to their credit, they do try to innovate and push the technology forward. And one of the things that they are going to have, which as a first for the big boys, is an in-screen fingerprint reader. We sort of talked about this before, but it was pie in the sky. Like there was really no flagship phone that was going to have that feature, and it was so new that it was kind of slow and laggy. But now that it's the features coming out on the Galaxy S10 that's going to be coming out later this year, one, it probably is going to be pretty snappy, because I can't imagine that Samsung would release that feature and have it be slow and kludgy,
Yeah.
But that also means that it's probably going to start trickling down to other phones, which is why I like the big flagships to have new features, because once they get it, that means new phones are going to get it as well on the lower end of the spectrum.
Yeah, ever since these fingerprint technology have been introduced, I've always liked them. I've always found that they've done a really good job. They're very convenient. They're very easy to kind of understand what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
When Apple took theirs away on the iPhone 10, and then you had to use your face. I did have friends who were, they're married to Apple, and they just they missed it. They missed being able to just like quickly just like hit that button. But most of these devices have had to have some sort of special button. I mean, the iPhone 5 and up had their little home. They put in the home button, and then a lot of Android phones of recent years have had a button that has a fingerprint reader on the front or on the back or on the side or wherever.
Yeah.
But they've always had to have specifically like a special capacitive like button or tiny. If they're effectively tiny touchpads that are only used for fingerprints, they're a great way to actually just kind of quickly get into your phone. So if this technology just kind of allows you to just basically do that by tapping on your screen, all the better, because then you don't have to worry about like, I've got to position my hand exactly in the right way on my phone as I pull it out of my pocket.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, a lot of times when I'm looking at something on my phone, I literally just reach in, my finger instinctively, I have the Pixel 2 XL, so the fingerprint readers on the back, which I will debate is the right place to do it. If you're going to have a outer case fingerprint reader, because the button on the front I think is dumb. But regardless.
Yeah, because of the way that you grab your phone, like the way that you hold onto your phone, it's actually a really good placement, much more than I expected when I first heard about it.
Yeah.
I do know that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, it's just really natural because your finger, like my finger sometimes falls in that place on accident. So sometimes I'm like, oh shit, I accidentally unlocked my phone.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what the implementation here is. I mean, you're talking about, expensive phones, and and so on and so forth. The thing about the Samsung phones, the Galaxy line specifically, is it is the flagship of the flagships. I mean, it is like if you talk to the average person on the street, most of them are going to know here are your two smartphone choices: iPhone, Samsung. That's what the general person is going to say. They're not going to say Android. They're not going to say Android. Or sorry, they're not going to say iPhone and then either OnePlus or LG or Samsung or Google. They're not going to say that. So I'm very curious to see. They've got to do this right. I know that I brought up the OnePlus. I know the OnePlus had a fingerprint reader in the screen, but it was in a very specific place on the front, and like you kind of had to have your finger a third of the way up the screen. It showed you where you had to press it, but at the same time, it's like the idea of just being able to just like pull it out of your pocket and have your thumb just anywhere on that screen like you normally would. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and I'm sort of curious, and I probably could have read into this, but I didn't because I'm lazy. But I'm curious if Samsung does what I think would be the proper implementation of this. There's sort of three criteria, I think, as far as fingerprint readers go. I think, one, have a fingerprint reader on the back. Now, traditionally, Samsung has fucked this up somehow because they always decide to put it by their camera, and so you end up smudging your camera lens, and so your pictures look like you're 7 years old and you just took a picture with your little wobbly hands. And to the point where they literally started showing a sort of error message that says, please wipe the camera before taking picture. And it's like, if I need to take a picture of something quick, I don't want to have to wipe the camera because you put your fucking fingerprint reader in a dumb place. So that bothers me. But I still think having a fingerprint reader on the back makes sense. I like having a fingerprint reader on the front. But my third caveat to that is I kind of like the idea of having the fingerprint reader be in a region. And the reason I say that is for that same rationale I mentioned earlier. I don't want to accidentally unlock my phone just picking it up, right?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I mean, I was used to the iPhone. I used to be an iPhone user. I switched to Android about a year ago, and I was used to the front to pressing to hitting the button on the front. It's much faster and easier for me to do it by pressing it on the back. What I'd like to see, actually, you know what? Now that you bring that up, that is a good point. But what would be nice is if you pick up your phone. I don't necessarily have to touch the button on the back, but if I put my finger on that screen as if I'm about to use it, and it immediately recognizes my fingerprint, it just unlocks, and I can, if the movement of me hitting that screen and then just swiping upward or whatever like you would do normally to unlock something, if that movement can be fluid enough, that would be ideal. Just push, put my finger on the screen and move it a little, and move it up a little bit as if I'm like making that unlock gesture. And it reads my fingerprint and does it, but for somebody else it doesn't.
Yeah,
that would be perfect for me.
And frankly speaking, so initially my thought was I want it to be almost like the button was on the front, but I was like, well, the reason I don't like the button on the front is from an ergonomic standpoint. For some people it's perfect, for some people it's not. So having it be a region and I think you would have to have it sort of be like a sort of like box on the outer edge, where like no matter where you're holding it, if at what orientation, you could always unlock it. But nonetheless, have it so that it's not just an individual button for ergonomics, but it's not the entire screen just in case you're picking your phone up and you just want to, like, it was on the table and you're putting it in your pocket, and I don't want to have it just the screen be on in my pocket. And then, because I've had that happen where I accidentally unlocked my phone because, and for whatever reason, and next thing you know, I feel like a goddamn ball of fires in my pocket. You know?
I have that all the time, but my issue is like not properly locking it because I'm not quite used to how the phone operates. So I'll have that problem where I'll put it in my pocket and then like my leg opens Nest or something.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and again, there probably is never going to be a perfect implementation, but again, just giving more options for people so that way they can use it the way they want is really the ideal way of sort of approaching it.
Here's what everybody needs to do. Figure out things that people might like. Talk to people, listen to people. Figure out the different things that people like. Make phones with those functions. And don't put any bloatware on your phone. You do those two things. As much as I'm like, I hope Samsung does this thing, I'm still not going to buy a Samsung phone.
Nope.
Because, what I really hope is that they do this thing, and then other people pick up on it so that I can get other people's phones, so I can upgrade to the next, Pixel or V50 or whatever it happens to be. That's what I really hope, because the more crap you put on your phone, I'm just going to walk away.
Mm-hmm. Now, there is another feature that they're going to be introducing on the Galaxy S10. And it's sort of a new solution to the notch. So we've talked ad nauseum about how different companies are coming up with different solutions to get rid of the notch. And for those of you who aren't familiar, so everybody wants the front of the phone to be nothing but screen. So it looks like a goddamn space movie where you had, like a future phone that's nothing but a screen.
People want the Iron Man phone, so that's what they want.
Oh, exactly.
Little hologram that sticks out.
In my opinion, it sounds good in theory, but there's other issues with it, but I'm not going to get into that. So, as a solution, phones have been moving the screen up, but then leaving a little notch in the middle just for the cameras to go. Because, I mean, let's be honest, people need selfies. That's not going to go away anytime soon.
You need to have your cameras, and you need to have your light sensors and all that kind of stuff.
And just to say the least. But the notches are ugly, and even I can attest to that. I think notches are hideous. But Samsung thinks they found a way. So there have been a few companies coming out with different solutions. So there's one that's what they're calling the teardrop, where literally it looks like a little drop coming from the center of your phone, and at the bottom of it is the lens for the camera. And so literally it's just a little protrusion there. Samsung didn't like that. Instead, they said, "Yo, we're gonna take your screen and we're gonna punch a hole in it." And that's just how it's going to be. So literally it's called the hole punch. People are calling it the hole punch now. I don't know if Samsung is calling it that or not, but it literally looks like a screen that just you took a hole punch to. And one, I kind of like it, except for two, it's not perfectly oriented. So in my mind, the way I see it is being exactly the same distance from the top as the side, but that's not how they did it. And so because of that, it looks really weird, and I'm imagining watching something on my screen, on my completely bezel-less phone, and just seeing a big ass hole in the top left corner of it.
Yeah, Samsung kind of put it, I don't know, they did a kind of weird job. I know that Huawei is working on a phone that also has a hole punch thing, but they actually kind of made it more symmetrical. Yeah. I'm not sure how I feel about the hole punch thing. I almost rather would have just a little bit of a bezel at the top. I think really they just really need to work on, not even work on. I mean, they've been doing this for years, but they just need to get to the point where the miniaturization of these cameras and these sensors and stuff like that is small enough to basically have as little bezel as possible. But until then, I don't mind having a little bit of a bezel at the top of the screen. If the actual real estate of the screen is equivalent to the real estate of the screen if I've got a good phone, right? An $800 phone or whatever it is, right? If I've got a good phone, then that screen real estate needs to be as good as the screen real estate on all of its equivalents.
Yeah.
The hole punch I'm not sure how I feel about it. It's just throwing me off a bit. And if the phone's a little taller, to have a little bit of a bezel but still has that screen real estate, I'm happy with it. What they really need to do is somebody needs to start making phones that fits in women's pants, but for my wife, but I've talked about that ad nauseum before.
But I think the solution is fix the pants and not the phone.
Well, yes, that's true.
Yeah, I think
but
that's the solution.
Nobody's doing that.
No.
Because women's pants are made by non-women.
Pretty much. I will say this. I think it's a clever solution. I'm not sure I'm a fan. I think the market is going towards, so just like how we have in-screen fingerprint readers, I think we're going to be going towards behind-the-screen cameras. It wouldn't be impossible to do. It basically could work like a two-way mirror does in modern society with like criminal, like what police use or whatnot, and but there are some other issues that come along with that, and I'm sure we're years away from that actually being a thing. But look, in all honesty, I wasn't going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it. I'm not a fan of the notch in any capacity for one reason alone. I like bezels. To me, bezels have an actual function. When you're holding your phone, no one's holding their phone perfectly unless they're in a commercial. They're usually holding it where they're touching a little bit of the front of it for comfort and ergonomic purposes. So I like there being a little space where I can do that and not fast forward a YouTube video or make the menu pop up or something crazy like that, Also,
I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, here's the thing, man. It's not just touch too. Touching it and being able to handle your phone is the biggest thing, I think, but it's also just an aesthetic thing. I mean, what's wrong with having a small amount of a bezel? If I'm at home and I'm looking at a picture that's sitting on my wall or on my bookshelf, that picture is not just a picture that's sitting there on an angle. It's a picture in a frame, man.
It's so funny because real life pictures we want in a frame. We want it to be held up there. You wouldn't just put it up on a wall like a poster, right? And even like really nice posters, what do people do? They frame them. What do people do for pretend pictures? They want no frame. How do we get to this point?
Yeah, I don't really get it. And then my final concern here with this design, and it was, I had this concern with the notch, but people worked their way around it. But you keep changing these designs, and you have something like this. I have friends who are app developers, and in the old days, it was relatively easy. There were 2 or 3 Android phones, and there was like one iOS, or there were 2 iOS devices that basically had screens of the same like aspect ratio, just one was bigger than the other, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was really easy for app developers to make an app, to design it around a kind of like almost a standard for these platforms, and and get it out the door and all this kind of stuff. And you put stuff in here now people are going to have to work around this idea that they're still going to be dealing with the notch problem. The notch problem is that you can't put anything in that top like 16th of your screen because of the notch. You can put something on the left, you can put something on the right, you can put your little icons here, and you can put your little clock there. This, you can't even do that. You can't put something on the right, so now you've got to redesign it again. To go around this. How are we going to deal with, I mean, if you're playing a game that's full screen, a game is an example, but if you're doing anything that has a full screen, let's say you're looking at a spreadsheet and you've got all your numbers and they're all scrolling up to the top of the screen, and then all of a sudden your numbers look like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 giant hole.
Yeah.
Yes, of course you can scroll up and down, but it's just kind of like, look.
But now you have to make an adjustment for something that you normally would just use and be done.
Right. And if you're talking about a user interface, right? If you're talking about a UX for an app, what are these what are these guys going to do? It's like, are they going to build their things around the notch? Either way, I feel like all of these app developers are just going to continue to build things that don't use this certain top portion of the screen, because that's where people are putting all these random things.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and I know we're talking about all this, tech that's coming to this phone. And it sounds, I'm sure some of you thinking like, you know what, this sounds appealing. Well, there's one last thing we'll leave you with before we move on here. This phone is rumored to cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,200. $1,200.
Oh boy.
That is absolutely insane. That is a laptop. That is a TV on sale. You can get a 4K TV, and guess what? Yeah, it'll have bezels, but it won't have a hole in the screen.
That's a decent laptop. That's an iPad Pro.
Yep.
Not even a regular iPad, an iPad Pro.
It's insane to me. And look, people are going to buy it. Now,
yeah.
I don't think that many people are going to buy it. If anything, we've seen this happen with the iPhone X.
They'll buy it because of the financing or payments, the kind of the stuff that their cell phone companies do, because every cell phone company carries Samsung. So they'll look at the cost, and then they'll look at the cost, and they'll just be like, okay, whatever, how much will that cost me per month?
Yeah. It's just, I'm not sure if it's going to work out like that, because the iPhone X for Verizon, they don't give a shit. They'll do that with any phone, an iPhone or otherwise, and they haven't been able to sell those bastards at all. In fact, you see more commercials now. I remember when it first launched, it was primarily iPhone X commercials. Then the commercials completely switched to iPhone XR, which is the cheaper, lower end model.
The iPhone XR, and you're right there. The iPhone XR has been much, much more successful than the XS or the XS Max or XS Plus or whatever the hell it's called.
Yeah, the Triple X.
Yeah, the XR has been more successful. And like, if I were shopping for an iPhone right now, that's the one I'd get. I mean. It for 99% of people out there, the things that you're giving up on that phone versus the higher end one versus the XS are completely just, they're a non-issue.
Yep.
And yeah, they do look at the price. You're right. You're absolutely right. They do look at the price, and they do see $799 versus $1199, and hell yeah, no, I get you.
Yeah, and the fucked up thing is mid-range models are starting to become $700. I remember when that was a high end, but
yeah,
you can still, just like back in the day, you can still get a very, very good phone for $600.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, I had a bit of sticker shock when I got my Android phone, but mostly because a few like. As is the case whenever companies are introducing their new flagship phones, a number of other ones came out that were at least as good and cost $200 less, like a couple months later. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the even the Razer phones, I think, are only around $600, $650, and the OnePlus is like $600. Yeah.
So we'll see how it works. Yeah, I mean, you're going to get a good phone regardless. It's just, you're going to pay for it.
Yeah, a $1,200 phone is a good phone. Doesn't have to be a $1,200 phone. No. It just doesn't. Sorry.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, frankly, I talk about the iPhone XR. A good phone also doesn't have to be a $799 phone.
This is true as well.
I mean, yeah. I don't know. I feel like 600 is the sweet spot right now. 600, 650.
Yeah, it could be. It's just a matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna go into something that is less depressing in certain ways. Depends on who you're rooting for. Earlier this week, it was reported that a Colorado man who happened to be out for a run was attacked by a mountain lion. And normally you'd be like, oh man, poor guy. He probably did, hopefully he didn't suffer too long. You're right. But that doesn't apply to the man. It applies to the mountain lion, because apparently he killed that mountain lion with his bare hands.
He suffocated it. I'm not sure how exactly. I don't know if I guess he choked it. He choked a mountain lion.
All I know is the runner sustained, quote, serious but non-life-threatening injuries, which is incredible. I don't know how that's possible. I'm happy he survived. 2, I'm sad a mountain lion died, because I never want to see like a animal killed. But I'm not gonna tell. I'm not like some people where animals are better than people. In some instances, yes, but not in all. And in this instance, I'm not gonna root for that mountain lion. I don't know his background, and I don't know that man's background. All I know is I'm a human, and I'm gonna lean towards Team Human in this instance. And God damn it, he did all right. He made it.
I look at this story and my reaction is this. This guy's a runner, right? I hope he gets to keep the mountain lion, because then he can make a new pair of Pumas. Oh, yeah!
And on that note, we're done with that story. Oh, shit. I just thought it was crazy. I mean, come on. Dude fucking killed a mountain lion with his hands.
Yes, he did.
Way to go, mankind. All right. We're going to quickly flip over back to something we normally talk about, and that's Marvel movies. And in this particular instance, we're going to talk about Avengers Endgame. So this is the culmination of the Avengers movies. And,
yes, the movie formerly known as Infinity War Part 2.
Exactly. So, to be fair, I think it's fair to say that most people, after seeing the Infinity War Part 1, would go, man, I wonder what's going to happen in the second one. There's going to have to be a lot of shit that goes down. And you'd be right. You'd be so right that apparently this movie is going to be 3 hours long.
Yeah, this is the Lord of the Rings extended edition of Marvel movies.
I, cannot wait. I think that is brilliant. I do not like when stories are rushed just for time constraints, because usually that means things are sacrificed. And I, too, am frightened at the mere concept of an extended director's edition version of this movie. How long is this fucking movie with the director's cut?
Well, here's the thing too. It's like Infinity War, the previous film, was not short. Mm-mm. That movie was like it was over 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So really, I mean, when you put these two films together, you're basically getting the equivalent of an old school trilogy.
Yeah.
That's almost 6 hours of story.
Yeah. And you know what I find funny? There are people that whenever a Marvel movie comes out, they go to these movie theater specials where they show all the Marvel movies from start to finish. And,
oh, man.
And this makes this a much more unappealing prospect, because you're like,
look,
unless you're going,
unless you're going to one of those theaters that has like the super comfy, like giant recliners, serves alcohol and food, like real food.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna do that.
Yeah.
But if I do find one of those, and I could send my kid off to a boarding school, I would so do that.
I know. Well, I think the last time I looked it up for one of those events, we're talking like 24, 26 hours worth of movie time that you're watching. So
yeah, we'll need a nap. We'll need a nap in between.
Well, look, there's certain movies right out of the gate, I'm going to bed. I'm going night. The first Hulk movie, night time. The second Iron Man movie, was it the third?
Yep.
Yeah, night
it was
time.
The second. Well, actually, no, it was both the second and the third.
Yeah. Let's be honest. Although I think one was better than the other. I can't remember which one because I mean,
Yeah, I'm
it's
not
too many.
sure. I didn't actually see the third. I just heard things
Yeah,
about it.
I think this. Which one was with Mickey Rourke? Was that the second?
Second one.
Yeah, that was a bad one. That was the worst one. The
Yeah,
third
yeah.
one was like felt better. It just didn't hit home, you know. But you know what it is. But either way, like there are gonna be movies you go, oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna take a nap and use this as my downtime, you know. And if you're like me, I can sleep through anything, so it wouldn't be that bad of a prospect. Like literally, I just go to sleep and I wake somebody. I had to have somebody nudge me when the next movie I actually want to see is going, but that's over a day. We're like well past a day. We're like getting closer to fucking 36 hours than 24 at this point.
Yeah. You just got to take your naps in 2-hour chunks. You take them for Iron Man 2, you take them for Thor 2, you take it for one or both Hulk movies,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
depending upon your feelings about that. Maybe take it for the first Ant-Man. I liked the second one. I thought it was fun.
I did too.
Kind of relied on you seeing the first one to a certain extent, but
yeah.
So
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah, but either way, I'd rather have it be a complete story, so I'm not gonna complain.
Yeah.
Now, staying within the Marvel universe, with it being February, it's obviously Black History Month, and there have been a lot of progress within the Marvel universe with Black superheroes coming to the forefront with Black Panther. And apparently, Marvel wanted to commemorate this by offering free Black Panther comic books. Now, it is, I believe it's online only, but I mean, look, just get it. It's free comic books. Don't complain. They're going to be releasing free digital copies of Black Panther 1, Black Panther World of Wakanda, Marvel's Black Panther Prelude #1, and then when they re-released Black Panther in 2018, #1 issue of that, and Suri #1. I won't say what happens with Suri in that universe because spoilers, that would be mean. But yeah, so that's five comics that Marvel's giving out for free. Look, if you have any kids that you know of that want to get into comics and they don't have a lot of money, this is a really good alternative to just get them some content where they could just read. And my mom was a firm believer that, you know what, I'd rather you read comic books than nothing at all. So she fostered that. And this is why I'm into comics today. So, now, man, I wonder if I could have been like Mr. Glass. And that's maybe what she's, that's for another day. But nonetheless, definitely have it so that you check it out. Because I think, in all honesty, I mean, it's 5 free comics. Just fucking get it. Like, what are you complaining about?
Yeah, it's free comics. I mean, it's free. And it's comics. The greatest of medium.
Exactly. And I don't think there's much more to be said about that. We are going to do one last story. This is going to be very, very, very quickly here. And that's about the CEO of Amazon, one Jeff Bezos.
Oh, this story.
So, Mark, tell me what you know, and I will fill in the details with information that I'm familiar with.
All right. So, I wouldn't exactly call myself a fan of Jeff Bezos. Never really have been. He's it's fine. I use Amazon because we've reached a point in society, or in this society, where it's kind of a necessary evil. I don't particularly, I'm not a fan just because I have issues with the way that they treat their employees and various other reasons. But I never thought that I would feel sympathy for him until this stuff with the National Enquirer. So from what I mean, really, I don't know a lot about it. I know that the National Enquirer has some sort of embarrassing information that they are basically effectively. It sounds like they're effectively blackmailing Jeff Bezos, saying, if you don't let us publish this stuff, we have more embarrassing stuff that we will publish. And he's taking them to task for it.
Yeah. So I'm going to fill that in a little bit. So long story short, essentially National Enquirer has what ultimately comes to dick pics of Jeff Bezos and revealing photos of some woman that probably was cheating on his wife, which led to their divorce in the first place. And as Mark alluded to, they essentially are blackmailing him to... Well, and this is where things get weird. They basically are blackmailing him to get what they want, but the National Enquirer is also involved with like this story about Saudi Arabia and the president being involved. And I guess Jeff Bezos was going to reveal some of this information, but they were trying to blackmail him to not do this. And so this isn't the first time that the National Enquirer has been involved with trying to cover up information regarding Donald Trump. This is what happened with the whole Stormy Daniels nonsense, where essentially the National Enquirer were the part of the group that paid off Stormy Daniels, so that they owned the story and they would make sure that nobody can release it without being sued. And so that's why it was under wraps for so long until she decided, fuck you, I'm just going to go do it. But yeah, it's this really weird conspiratorial thing. But the thing is, it's not conspiratorial. It's like actually true. This is like actually happening. Is Jeff Bezos has gone as far as to release emails that the National Enquirer's head company, AMI, has sent to him, and like releasing like text messages. Like, it's so insane that like why with this president we can't stop talking about dicks of some kind. Like I don't care about your dick pics, and now I have to talk about Jeff Bezos's dick pics. And like, good for Jeff Bezos. Look, he's probably at a point right now where he doesn't give a fuck, right? He's like, I'm going through this divorce proceeding. I'm probably going to get taken to the woodshed when it comes to this. So I got nothing to lose. And I'd be damned if I'm going to cave to you and my wife's lawyer at the same time, you know? And so he's not backing down. And he's like releasing all this information to be like, look, you guys are fucking assholes, and I'm going to show how big of an asshole you are. But this is insane. This is a news publication. I use that in quotes because it is the National Enquirer, but it's a news publication that's blackmailing a Fortune 500 CEO in order for the president of the United States to not be shown as an asshole. This is just crazy. This is just insane.
Which is, and hilariously, the president then came out with a tweet that showed him to be, well, an asshole, but
he was. That's the thing. The president was going to show he's an asshole no matter what. But I think more so.
Yeah, but he was like specifically an asshole about it like gloating about this whole story going on. Mm-hmm. And I just look, politics aside, you know, people out there may or may not agree with various aspects of our political system right now, but can we all just agree that sending out messages and calling people things like Jeff Bozo is the kind of crap that a 6-year-old does? A 6-year-old is not somebody that we should be making president. I'm sorry, I don't want to be political, but for God's sake, this is so childish.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's again, we're not gonna go. I'm gonna post some articles referencing this because I am not doing it justice, and I acknowledge that. But part of it is it just exhausts me in every sense of the way. So we're just gonna end the show right there.
Yeah, I think that's a good spot.
And so let's go ahead and wrap this up. So first thing first, hit us up on Instagram and Twitter at that1pod. Email us at podthat@gmail.com. Go to shows.pipple.io/that, the number one podcast, to get everything from old episodes to the Discord channel. Join the Discord channel. We're here. We're having fun. And then go ahead and check out Mark where?
At twitch.tv/Tycoonatic. Look for Tycoonatic on YouTube and Twitter. And yeah, that's about it.
And I will say this. Normally we wrap it up there, but I'm going to throw out one more channel for you guys. Go to twitch.tv/The Sky Lounge. A good buddy of ours is broadcasting there. He does some variety streaming. He does a lot of streaming when it comes to Microsoft Flight Simulator, but he got laid off, and right now he's struggling a little bit. But just go watch his shit, help him out, okay? Because if you think my channel is chillaxin', then you definitely want to check out the Sky Lounge. Sky Lounge is a conglomerate of a bunch of people who specialize in things like flight simulators and sometimes other things like truck simulators, but all basically like simulators where they just kick back, they relax, they get themselves up in the virtual air and just kind of like, just take you through a nice relaxing day. They play great music in the background, and it's a great channel. Follow, subscribe, please. Little goes a long way.
Really help a friend out.
And if you see Edson streaming, tell him Marvin sent you. And Mark. There you go.
Yeah.
That's it, everybody. That's what I wanted to leave with. As always, everybody, be nice to one another.
All right, everybody. Smell you later.
Bye.